In an age where we can pinpoint a smartphone to within a few feet, how can a 200-ton Boeing 777 carrying 239 people just vanish? On March 8th, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 did precisely that. It disappeared from radar, triggering one of the most sprawling and expensive searches in human history. Yet, more than a decade later, most of the aircraft is still missing, consumed by the sea. This isn't just the story of a lost plane. It's a mystery that continues to challenge technology, science, and our sense of security in the modern world. How did this happen? And more importantly, why is its final resting place still a secret? Section 1. The Vanishing. It started as a flight, so routine, it was completely unremarkable. At 12:42 a.m. local time on March 8th, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370, a modern Boeing 777, took off from Kuala Lumpur, heading for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members, led by a senior captain, Zahari Ahmad Shah. For the first 40 minutes, everything was perfectly normal. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude, the cabin lights dimmed, and the journey began without a hint of trouble. At 1:07 a.m., the aircraft sent its final automated health report via the ACAS system. All systems were normal. 12 minutes later, at 1:19 a.m., came the last voice communication from the cockpit. Air traffic control in Kuala Lumpur was handing the flight over to their counterparts in Vietnam. The voice from MH370 was calm and professional. Good night, Malaysian 370. 2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the unthinkable happened, just as it was about to enter Vietnamese airspace. The plane's transponder, the device broadcasting its identity, altitude, and speed to civilian radar, was turned off. Instantly, Flight 370 was gone from air traffic control screens. There was no distress call, no storm warning, no sign of mechanical failure. The plane and everyone on it had become a ghost. Initially, everyone assumed a catastrophic failure had occurred, something so sudden and violent that it destroyed the plane in midair. Search teams immediately converged on the South China Sea. The plane's last known location. But as days bled into a week, a far stranger reality emerged. While civilian radar had lost the plane, military radar had not. Data from Malaysian military radar showed something that defied all early theories. Instead of dropping from the sky, MH370 had made a sharp, deliberate turn back to the west, flying across the Malay Peninsula. It then veered northwest over the Andaman Sea. The last clear military radar contact was at 2:22 a.m., a full hour after it vanished from civilian screens. The plane wasn't just missing. It was on a phantom flight, piloted by an unknown hand toward an unknown destination. The mystery deepened with data from the British satellite company Inmarsat. Their satellite, stationary over the Indian Ocean, had been receiving automated pings from the aircraft. These pings contained no location data, but they proved the plane's satellite system was still powered on. The final ping was received at 8:19 a.m., more than 7 hours after the transponder went silent. This was the bombshell. MH370 hadn't crashed in the South China Sea. It had flown for hours until it ran out of fuel and fell into one of the most remote places on Earth, the southern Indian Ocean. The problem wasn't just finding a needle in a haystack. It was that the haystack was the size of a continent. Section 2. The Search, a monumental challenge. The Inmarsat data completely changed the search. The international effort, once focused on the busy South China Sea, had to pivot to a desolate and largely uncharted part of the ocean, thousands of kilometers southwest of Australia. This new search area was defined by the seventh arc, a massive curve of possible locations based on that final satellite ping. The arc represented where the plane was thought to have finally run out of fuel. This shift began what would become the most complex and expensive search in aviation history. The initial surface search, led by Australia, covered an incredible 4.5 million square kilometers of ocean. For weeks, planes and ships from numerous countries scanned the waves for any sign of debris, but they found nothing. The real challenge, however, was underwater. In May 2014, the mission moved to an underwater search, focusing on a 60,000 square kilometer priority zone, which was later doubled to 120,000. The scale of this is hard to grasp. The search area was incredibly remote, in a region infamous for brutal weather and monster waves. The seabed itself was a hostile, alien world, not flat sand, but a jagged landscape of underwater volcanoes, deep canyons, and sheer cliffs, with depths reaching 6,000 meters, nearly 4 miles down. To map this abyss, Teams used the sophisticated autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, torpedo-shaped subs equipped with sonar. These drones painstakingly crawled through the darkness, painting a picture of the seafloor. But progress was agonizingly slow. After nearly 3 years of tireless work, with costs for the government-led searches approaching 200 million Australian dollars, the official search was suspended in January 2017. The main wreckage still eluded the world's most advanced technology. In 2018, a private American company, Ocean Infinity, took up the challenge on a no-find, no-fee basis. They deployed a fleet of more advanced AUVs that could work together to cover the seafloor much faster. Their search covered another 112,000 square kilometers over several months. But they, too, came up empty. The vast, silent ocean kept its secret. Section 3. The clues and the theories. For more than a year, the mystery of MH370 was a complete void. Then, on the 29th of July 2015, a piece of an airplane wing was found on a beach on Reunion Island. Thousands of kilometers from the search zone, it was a flaperon. In September 2015, authorities confirmed it was from MH370. This discovery was a turning point. It was the first physical proof that the plane had crashed. More importantly, it validated the scientific drift models suggesting that ocean currents could carry debris from the crash site to Africa. This single piece of wreckage reignited the investigation, and more was found. In the years that followed, over a dozen other pieces of debris, either confirmed or likely from MH370, washed up on the coasts of Mozambique, Tanzania, and South Africa. These fragments began to tell story. Analysis of the flaperon suggested it was not in a landing position at the time of impact, pointing to a high-speed, uncontrolled dive into the ocean. Perhaps the most chilling clue emerged from a piece of landing gear door found in Madagascar. A 2022 report by independent investigators Richard Godfrey and Blaine Gibson concluded the damage suggests the landing gear was down on impact. For the gear to be down, it would have to be deliberately lowered. Doing so at high speed would destabilize the plane, ensuring it broke apart on impact and sank as quickly as possible. This analysis strongly supports the leading theory, a deliberate act by one of the pilots. This evidence fuels the theory of a mass murder-suicide by the captain. It suggests that, for unknown reasons, the captain may have locked the co-pilot out, depressurized the plane to incapacitate everyone on board, and flew it to a remote grave. A flight path mirroring the plane's final journey was found on his home flight simulator, though official investigations found no clear motive. Of course, other theories persist. A hijacking was considered, especially after 2 passengers were found to be using stolen passports, but they were later identified as asylum seekers with no links to terrorism. The ghost flight theory proposes that a fire or depressurization event incapacitated everyone, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until its fuel ran out. However, this doesn't fully explain the deliberate turnback and the systematic shutdown of communications at the start of the incident. Conclusion: the enduring mystery. So why, after all this time and technology, is most of this massive aircraft still missing? The answer is a combination of imperfect data, the immense scale of the ocean, and the limits of our technology. The main reason is the imprecision of the satellite data. The Inmarsat pings were a vital clue, but they only provided a distance from the satellite, not a specific location. This created the seventh arc, a massive 1,000 kilometer long curve of possibilities. A tiny error in the mass could shift the crash site by dozens of kilometers, opening up a new, vast area to search. Second is the search environment itself. The southern Indian Ocean is one of the deepest and most rugged parts of the globe. It's a landscape of underwater mountain ranges where wreckage could easily be hidden. Unpredictable currents could have scattered the debris field, making it even harder to find. Finally, while the search technology is incredible, it isn't perfect. It's possible for sonar to miss wreckage, especially if it's fragmented or lodged in a deep crevasse. The first search covered a huge area, but it may have simply missed the plane by a few hundred meters, despite the suspended searches. The story of MH370 isn't over. The disappearance led to major changes in aviation safety. New rules require planes to report their position more frequently, and new aircraft will have systems to autonomously transmit their location if in distress, ensuring a plane can't just vanish this way again. In late 2025, the search for MH370 was officially restarted. The private company Ocean Infinity, with a new generation of underwater drones and refined analysis, once again took on the challenge under a new no-find, no-fee agreement with the Malaysian government. Their ship arrived in a newly identified search area in early January 2026. As of early February 2026, the vessel has paused its operations and returned to port for resupply, with the search expected to continue in phases. The theories around MH370 are as deep as the ocean where it rests. A deliberate act, a catastrophic accident, a ghost flight. What do you think really happened to the plane? Share your theory in the comments below. And for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries, make sure to subscribe for the families of the 239 people on board. This isn't a mystery. It's a wound that can't heal. The absence of answers and a final resting place leaves them in a painful limbo. The hope remains that technology, perseverance, and maybe some luck will one day bring the truth to the surface, finally ending the silence from the deep and providing closure to one of the most haunting questions of our time.